Para allá, pucha.
Le macchine se ne sono andate, sono volate, c'era una macchina.
The storm described by meteorologists as very unusual for the late October. Lasted less than an hour but caused significant disruption. Roads from Piazza Venezia and Trastevere were covered with white, blackened, rain-misty winter landscape. It was like the end of the world, said Claudia Rossi, owner of a café near Campo de Fiori. The hail was different. People were running inside, scrambling, the glass shattered from the impact. Emergency services were quickly overwhelmed. The Rome fire bridge responded to more than 215 emergency calls about flooded basements, fallen bridges and blocked drains. In some areas, hail blocked drains caused flash flood and flooded cars and forced the temporarily closed for metro station. Meteorologist Marco De Santis and Italian Air Force Meteorological Service explained that the storm was caused by explosive collisions between warm, moist air from the Tyrrhenian Sea and a sudden cold front moving south from the northern Italy. The instability creates ideal conditions for the formation of supercells, he said. Video posted on social media showed hailstones up to 15 centimeters in the side, with the Romans cleared sidewalks and shovels and brooms. Tourists near Colosseum and Trevi Fountain took shelters under umbrellas, captured dramatic footage and marble-sized ice balls bouncing for the ancient stones. Authority urged cautions for the nighttime. Temperatures dropped, tuning wet streets in a dangerously slippery surface. Public transport was severely disrupted, with the trams and buses delayed for hours. Rome Major Roberto Gallieri praised emergency service for their rapid response and promised to investigate the city drainage infrastructure, with his long be critical for the instability to the cope with a sudden downpour. Rome is facing for more curricular and intense weather events. We must adapt our system. Climatologists note that extreme weather events, including hailstones in the southern Europe, have increased by 14% for the past decade. This is a clear signal for climate change, warned Dr. Elena Bianchi at the University of Bologna. Rome, Italy. In a ray of terrifying weather event, the Italian capital was struck by a sudden hailstorm that transformed in the city golden autumn in the scene in the destruction. The streets around the Colosseum, Piazza Navona, and vegetation were covered in a white blanket of torrent of water, ice flooding Rome in a matter of minutes. The hailstorms come almost without warning. First there was the light rain and then bang, everything turned white, recalled Luca Marina, a taxi driver who was stuck near Termini station. Hailstones the size cone there, hidden by the white breeze, so hard that I thought it would crack. The storm lasted just under 14 minutes, but its effect was severe. Trees were uprooted, dozens of cars were damaged, and several areas including San Giovanni and Trastevere experienced power outage. Emergency service reported for the 300 calls per hour due to flooding, standing driver and collapsing avenue. Meteorologists described the event of atmospheric bomb formed that warm Mediterranean air cooled with a cold Arctic and descended over the central Italy. The temperature dropped by almost 10 degrees in less than an hour, said Dr. Luana Ferri, a climatologist and Siena University in Rome. Social media quickly filmed the dramatic image. River for ice falling down, with the Corso lighting illumination, soon the Piazza Venezia, and tourists running for cover in a handstand the size of a marble ball splattered at the cobblestones. Thunder rumbled between the ancient walls, creating the entire soundtrack of the city landmark. Public transport came to the up with the parts of the metro and tram network suspended due to flooded floods, and Flumiko, Kandla airports were temporarily delayed to cleared ice from the runways. Local authority brought in the clear crews through the night, while walking around the clock to restore safety, said Major Roberto Gianni, urged residents to stay indoors and avoid necessary travel. Although no casualties were reported, at least 6 people suffered minor injury from the fallen debris in hailstones. Insurance companies estimated that the damage in the millions of euros, especially to the vehicles and businesses with the open space. Events like this are increasingly frequent and intense due to climate change, warned the Dr. Trastevere, Romano climatologist of the University of Rome. Historic sites were not spared. Pisa, Navona, and Campo de Fiori was underwater, while protective measures were quickly deployed of the Colosseum and Roman Forum to prevent damage to existing structure. Nearby tourists sought shelters under the café summits of the lighting up to stormy sky. Power outage affected thousands of homes, and local authority urged residents to avoid unnecessary travel. Schools in the most affected districts were closed for the remainder of the day. Insurance companies have already begun assistance to extensive property damage, with a preliminary estimated reach millions of euros. Rome Major Roberto Gualtieri praised the rapid response of emergency crews and emphasizing civil vulnerability and increasingly extreme weather. "We must strengthen our infrastructure and preparedness," he said, as the storm subsided. Local emergency to assess the damage swept debris for the streets and helped stranded vehicles. Despite the chaos, Romans remain resilient. Rome has seen centuries of storm, said Mourning Conte, a resident, when during were rebuilt and life goes on. A violent storm swept through Palermo, Sicily, late Monday night, and unleashed torrential rain, violent winds, and powerful lightning strikes that brought the historic city to near its standstill. Within just 2 hours, rainfall levels exceeded those typical seen in entire month, tuning roads into raging rivers and trapped dozens of motorists in submerged tunnels. Emergency service declared a state of alert. Firefighters carried out more than 500 rescue operations across the metropolitan area. Cars were swept away in Via Leonardo da Vinci. After the city burst roads, the residents scrambled the high ground as water poured the basement of a ground-floor apartment. It was terrified, said local resident Maria Conti. The thunder shook in windows in a minute, and the streets outside became a river. We could even open the door against the water pre-show. Authority temporarily closed Palermo Falcone Bellsecato Airport at a crossroad exceeded 19 km/h, made the landfill unsafe.
Another candidate who previously worked for the party in Central, maybe another candidate or lead elected.
Palermo, Italy, a powerful storm swept through the Sicilian capital overnight, unleashed torrential rain, violent winds, and lifting parts and plunged parts of the city into chaos. The downpour, which began late Sunday, lasted several hours of flooded major roads, homes, and businesses across Palermo and nearly town. According to the Italy Severe Protection Agency, over 19 millimeters of rain fell in 2 hours, one of the hardest rainfall recorded in the recent years. The city and the drainage system was quickly overwhelmed, tuning main arteries over the valley region, Sicily, and the fast-flowing rivers. Cars were seen drifting through the streets and emergency crews raising their rescue standing drivers. It was like a waterflow pouring from the sky, said resident Giovanni Bianchi. Those ground flood apartment was submerged. I lived these 14 years and never seen a rain like this. Authority reported dozens of emergency interests from the clearing fallen trees and rescue elderly residents trapped flooded buildings. Several neighboring, including Sierra Montsetta and Partinico, suffered blackouts after lightning strikes damaged power lines. The Mediterranean has become a beginning ground the superchanging storm, said Dr. Elisa Conte, a climate researcher at La Sapienza University. Social media filmed the dramatic video showing lightning illumination the Coliseum, have covered the Spanish steps, and a water cascading down ancient starways. In some neighborhoods, power outage left hundreds of homes in the darkness for hours. Authorities have urged caution a cleanup continue. Rome major paralyzed emergency crew for the rapid response by optimum the city again drainage system remained the major vulnerability. We must adapt. This is a new climate reality, she said. For many Romans, the storm Severe is a powerful reminder for even the eternal city is not immune the ground fury the extreme weather. As Dame broke, sunlight related the city's story scarred the still standing resilience as ever. Rome faced an unexpected and ferocious hailstorm yesterday, transforming the historic streets of the Eternal City into the winter-like scene in the middle of autumn. Within the minutes, hailstorm is large as walnuts pelted rooftops, cars and incident-capable stones caused widespread damage. Residents were caught off guard. It was like a wall of ice come from the sky, said Marco Ricci, who was walking near the Piazza Venezia. The hail smashed car windows and bounced the sidewalk. We can reach the cover. Tourists and local alike scrambled to find shelters and streets quickly flooded in ice water. Emergency services were overwhelmed. Firefighters and civil protection teams responded to hundreds of calls involving fallen trees, blocked roads, and stranded vehicles. In the Trastevere district, metro station and houses were temporarily submerged and buses were forced to reroute. Meteorologists described the storm of sudden and extreme caused by the Mediterranean low-pressure system interacted with warm, humid air from Africa. This condition can produce very violent storm in a short time, said climatologist Elisa Romano. This is a type of extreme weather event conditions that are becoming more frequent due to the climate change, said Dr. Giulia Ferraro of the Italian Meteorological Agency. Authority warning that there could be more unstable weather in the coming days and urged residents to avoid travel unless necessary. Major Roberto Giuliani promised quick cleanup and infrastructure improvement to better protect city. Social media was flooded with the images of streets covered in hail, broken widespread, and flooded alleys. Stark a reminder whether even cities of thousands years of history are vulnerable of the southern Europe nature. Late Monday evening, a severe hailstorm hit Rome, surprised residents and covered the ancient streets and the capital with a layer of ice. The sudden storm turned into Eternal City, wide, disrupting traffic, damaged cars and causing flash flooding in several areas. Within the minutes, the sky darkened in the sound of hailstorm sound the size of a golf ball, echoing across rooftops the courtyard. Video posted on social media showed streams of water following down the Spanish steps and vacations memorable courtyard glistening under the layer of ice. It was like an apocalypse, said Claudia Rossi, owner of a shop near Piazza Venezia. The hail was so heavy it broke part of our glass canopy. People were running to cover. Emergency services were quickly overwhelmed, responded to more than 400 calls across the city about flooding, fallen trees and damaged cars. Several metro stations were temporarily closed due to water ingress and bases were forced to reroute through the less affected areas. The storm also affected key landmarks. Parts of Trastevere and Mourning were left without power and several hours, where lighting lit up the sky above the Colosseum and St. Peter Basilica, creating dramatic and frightening scenes. Authorities report that the wind uprooted trees, damaged roofs and caused partial power outage in some areas and Veneto region. The city transport network was paralyzed, but bases were suspended and several bridges were temporarily closed due to high water levels. Meteorologists said the storm was fueled the powerful low-pressure system that swept across southern Europe during the most unstable air from the Mediterranean Sea. As a result, more than 120 millimeters of rainfall in few hours, half of Venice's normal monthly rainfall. Environmental groups have again warned that climate change is exactly but extreme weather events across Italy. Venice is not a far front to the climate crisis, say meteorologist Luca Moretti. Without district action, this flooding will only get worse. As the storm subsides, the clean begin that the forces and not yet devastation flood severe as a painful reminder of Venice's fragile struggle with the sea. A sudden and intense hailstorm swept across Sicily on a Tuesday afternoon, leaving streets submerged, vehicles damaged, and residents scrambling for the shelter. Meteorologists reported that the storm was full of the warm Mediterranean air colliding with a cold front from the north, causing heavy rainfall, hailstorms up to golf ball size, and strong winds had battered to the island. Palermo, Catania and Messina were among the hardest hit cities. Streets quickly flooded and traffic came to standstill and a heat shattered car windows and dented rooftops. "I've never seen hail like this in my life," said Giuliano Marino, in a local shop owner in Palermo. "The noise was different, and water was rising within minutes." The protest zone, Sicily Civil Protection Authority received hundreds of emergency calls for stranded motorists, fallen trees and damaged properties. Several small rivers in province overflowed, forced temporary evacuation in low-lying neighborhoods. Minor injuries were trapped from slip and a hail in park. Agriculture area also suffered significant losses. Late Tuesday night, a sudden hailstorm hit Rome, shocking the Eternal City, and marble streets and historic squares were covered in ice. Residents described the storm as unexpected and terrified, with the hailstorm raged in the sides from the marble of golf balls, smashed cars, breaking windows and damaged roofs. Central areas such as Trastevere, Piazza Venezia and Tyrrhenian were hardest hit, with the later levels rising rapidly in low-lying areas. Passengers were stranded on bases in cars, while passengers sought shelters. It was like a winter storm in in the middle of summer, said Luca De Santis, owner of Café near Coliseum. Customers ran into the cafe screaming as hailstorms tore our umbrellas to pieces. The Italian fire service Valle de Fuoco received more than 300 emergency calls about flooded streets, fallen trees and damaged cars. Several metro stations, including Barbary and Repubblica, were temporarily closed due to water inside the tunnels. Authorities confirmed that at least 10 people suffered minor injuries after being hit by hail or slippery on ice sidewalks. On Tuesday evening, a powerful thunderstorm swept across Rome, Italy, bringing torrential rain, stormy winds and lightning, and plunging the capital into chaos. In a matter of minutes, the calm late summer sky turned stormy, and torrential rain pouring down the historic streets caused sudden flooding, traffic paralyzing, and widespread power outage. Widespread described the storm as apocalyptic. Cars were stuck on flooded streets around the Villa Appia and Piazza Venezia. The several metro lines were forced to close due to flooding. I saw manhole covers being blown by the pre-show, said Claudia De Santis, owner of shop near Tyrrhenian Station. The water flooded the shops faster than could back the door. Villa de Fuoco, the Italian fire and the rescue service reported more than 400 emergency calls across the capital. Trees were uprooted, debris littered major roads, and parts of roofs were blown by the strong gusts of winds. In the Trastevere, firefighters rescued severe residents who were trapped to their cars, and the weather rose to dangerous levels. A violent hailstorm has battered parts of Sicily, transformed sun-shocked towns into city landscape, and caused widespread destruction across the island. The powerful storm struck suddenly on a Tuesday afternoon, hitting Palermo, Catania and several inland communities with torrents of rain and a hailstorm as large as a walnut. Within a minute, roads turned white, cars were dented with the flash floods swept through the narrow streets. It looked like a stormy August, said Maria Russa, a shop owner in Catania. The hail came down so fast and hard it broke out window and filtered the shop floor with water. Emergency crews were distributed across Sicily as a local authority received hundreds of distress calls. Firefighters worked late into the night to rescue drivers trapped in the submerged vehicles and clearing hail-pocket roads. In Palermo, parts of the Sicily Historic Center were blanketed in ice to 15 centimeters deep, forcing police to close several main roads and tunnels. Meteorologists say the storm was triggered by intense grayish air masses, warm humid rise from the Mediterranean, colding with a cold front descended from the northern Europe. Meteorologists from Italy's Severe Protection Agency described the phenomenon as a supercell outbreak. While rare in southern Europe, such events are becoming more frequent. The contrast between extreme heat and a cold front from the Alps created the perfect storm, explained senior meteorologist Dr. Andrea Lombardi. This level of intense fire used to occur once every 10 years, but how it happened every year. Severe damage occurred in rural area. Farmers in poor river basin reported corn, tomato, and grape crops crushed by hail. Some farms suffered total destruction just before harvest, with the initial estimated putting damage over 100 million euros. Luigi Ferrara, a farmer farmers in Emilia-Romagna say it looked like a battlefield. Everything we built this season is gone. Images shared on social media showed cars buried in a hill, roads covered in knee-deep ice, and rescue walkers navigating parts of white like sky slow. In Florence, heavy hail following the hill causing into Arno River to temporarily overflow, flooding low-lying areas. Businesses and restaurants suffered significant losers as water and ice flooding basements and outdoor terraces. The city farm landmarks from the Coliseum to Piazza Venezia, the briefly unrecognized shady streets of hail. Agriculture areas surrounding Rome also reported heavy damage. Farmers in Lazio said crops and grapes, olives and artichokes were devastated. Climatologists warned that such sudden and destructive storms are becoming more common across southern Europe due to climate change. The Mediterranean basin is heating faster than the global average, explained Dr. Lena Moretti of Italy National Meteorological Institute. This increases the energy available to violent thunderstorms. As cleanup operations continue, the city faces millions in damage and the stock warning about the vulnerable to extreme weather. The storm throughout lesson test 1 hour will likely be remembered as one of Rome's most severe hail events in the decades. Raising the alarm over significant damage to crops, vineyard and olive groves. Kept the region economy were damaged, raising concerns about the shortage and price tracks. Local markets lost fresh produce, water and ice and destroyed market stalls. Dramatic video approached the social media showing hailstorm pelted down of the Coliseum with some clipped centimeters of the view of meteor in hour. Meteorologists warned that such severe meteor previously rare in Rome could become common in rising sea temperatures, intensify storms in the southern Europe. A Rome cleaner ice from the streets and eases the financial damage. The storm has represented the debate about the urban resilience, climate change adaptation, and the Italian capital's preparedness for the increasingly unpredictability of nature. Public transportation was paralyzed, with the parts of the subway lines A and B suspended, bases rerouted and the flights and Campino airport delayed after runway were covered in hail. More than 13,000 residents were left without power, living entire neighborhoods in the dark. The economic impact is already severe. Outdoor territories across Rome historic center were destroyed, and initial estimates suggest that the damage could expect 15 million. Farmers in Lazio described the storm and destination. An entire vineyard and olive groves are destroyed in a matter of minutes. Experts blame a collision between humid Mediterranean air and an intense cold front. Meteorologist Claudia Rossi noted Rome is experiencing storm weather previously unthinkable. Climate change is increasing both their frequency and intensify. Resident and shaken but they're silent. Café owner Marco De Santis, weapon broken glass, had the balcony said. The city was survived the Melina, but every year nature is harder. It is a weekend we cannot ignore. The Italian city of Palermo was left in shock after the severe storm swept through the Sicilian capital, bringing torrential rain, hurricane-force winds and flash floods that paralyzed the city. Within hours, streets turned into raging rivers, swept away across the trapped residents in their homes. Emergency services were inundated with a call, rescued dozens of people from flooded cars in the basement. It was like a waterfall rushing throughout the streets, said a local shopkeeper. Describe it now, if the store was destroyed in minutes. Hospitals reported an influx of potent savory from the injured and hypothermia. Authorities confirmed several casualties and thousands of people were left without power as the power lines collapsed under the weight of fallen trees. The city's historic districts, usually bustling with the tourists, were eerily empty as residents hid in their homes. The storm also disrupted vital infrastructure. Palermo Airport temporarily suspended flights and ferry service were halted due to wave crashed onto the coast. In rural area around the city, farmland was destroyed onto olive groves and vineyards were flooded, raising fears of significant losses to agriculture. Meteorologists said the storm was intensified by the warm water of the Mediterranean Sea, which follow unstable air masses. Conditions like to the body effects of the climate change. Italy's Civil Protection Agency warned that extreme weather conditions are becoming the new normal and they call it to immediate investment to flood protection and the early warning system. Local authorities declared a state of emergency and the government promising to allocate funds to deal with the aftermath of the national disaster. Volunteers joined to brigade the police to clear blocked roads, but recovery expected to take weeks to even months. This is not the first time Sicily was faced with the wrath of nature, but experts are calling this storm one of the most destructive weather events in decades. The last such disaster occurred in 2029, where deadly floods and landslides killed 37 people in Messina, but this time the combination of heavy rainfall, wind and widespread infrastructure damage made the consequences even more serious. According to preliminary government report, more than 1,200 homes were damaged, 14 roads remain closed and 7 bridges have been structure damage. Insurance companies are already inundated with the claims of many families without insurance to continue on compensation from the state. This storm was particularly dangerous because it sudden. Meteorologists issued a yellow alert just hours before the first downpour. By that time, it was too late many communities to prepare. Critics are now to call into fast weather warning system to better preparedness of natural disaster, especially in the southern region, which is often overlooking. Satellite images show in a grim picture. After the storm, Sicily emergency service remained overwhelmed. Over 315 emergency calls were recorded in 24 hours, and fire crews were sent to Cerrete, Ragusa and Argento to clear fallen trees, restore power lines and evacuate flooded buildings. Farmers in rural area report catastrophic losses. Vineyard, olive grapes and retail and citrus orange, where other vital civil economy were flooded. This storm destroyed a 12-year war. St. Antonio Rizal, the farmer near Trapani, were in despair. The island's fragile infrastructure suffered serious damage. In the southern parts of the island, bridges in the rural roads collapsing, cutting off Smile Mountains town. In Enna, several landslides blocked all access roads, forcing helicopters to deliver supplies. Rescue teams, including the military, have been deployed to assist with the worst-hit areas. Civil defenders until have set up temporary shelters in schools and community centers of displaced families, many of whom have lost everything. Environmental experts warn that such intense storms are becoming more frequent due to climate change. Sicily Civil Protection Chief Fabio Crusoe warning of the increasingly unstable Mediterranean climate economy, warning from climatologists who said that the sea surface temperature now about 27 Celsius are contributed to the formation of more tropical cyclones now at the Mediterranean. Local media including Roberto Lagola of Palermo and Etnico Tragico of Catania have requested emergency funds of support from the national government. Cleanup efforts are ongoing with more than 1,400 civil protection volunteers and firefighters involved in the cleanup debris and drainage flooded areas. Environmental groups such as Ligibird and Colson Italy in the speed-up infrastructure urged, especially in the southern cities prone on flooding. Experts from the University of the Palermo know that 16% of region drainage system and outdated or inundated from the today extreme weather conditions. As Sicily begin in a powerful recovery, the message is clear. Climate disasters are no longer a distant possibility. They are not happening now with the devastating consequences.
Mirá acá con la velocidad que viene un contenedor, está aplastando gente, el auto ese se va.
The Italian government has declared a state of emergency in the several regions, mobilized rescue workers and deployed it to army to aid the evacuation efforts. Civil protection authorities have urged people in the affected areas to remind cautions to need official warning to forecast in coming days. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni visited in affected areas and presented their solidarity with the victims and pledged government support to reconstruction efforts. This is a national emergency and we are working closely with the local authorities to ensure the safety of all residents, she said. Climate experts warn that such extreme weather events become more frequent due to climate change. Italy, with a varied geography, is particularly vulnerable in the affected changing weather patterns. The combination of heavy rainfall, property, maintained infrastructure, and urban explosion into flood-prone areas in exact pattern the impact of the recent storms. Residents found themselves stranded in their homes waiting for rescue teams to arrive. The heat of Italy, Rome and entire city forced in all shared challenges at the Colosseum, an enduring symbol of Rome history, stood the silent weather the raging storm as the rain and wind threatening to erode an incident forecast. Trees turned into rivers and historic basins became waterlogged that caused extensive damage of city infrastructure. Italian authorities renovated their effective response to time of crisis point of action. Emergency service working tirelessly to rescue those trapped in the rising floodwaters and restore essential service. Helicopters, however, over submerged areas, airlifting residents to safety. The firefighters braved elements to reach those in need. Italy is facing a major crisis after catastrophic floods swept through the parts of the country, with Sicily and Tuscany bearing the brunt of devastation. Torrential rain over the past week was causing rivers to overflow, triggering landslides, and left entire communities underwater. The flood, described as some of the worst in recent memory, have claimed lives, displaced thousands, and caused widespread damage to infrastructure and homes. In Sicily, the latest rainstorm had left widespread flooding across urban and rural area alike. In the island capital Palermo, streets have turned into rivers, with the cars submerged and many residents forced to evacuate. Catania, another major city, has also been severely affected, with widespread damage reported in a historic center. The floods have overwhelmed the drainage system, leaving emergency services struggle to keep with the demand to rescue operations. Many people have been trapped in their homes and helicopters have been destroyed to airlift residents from isolated areas.